Hi, Temple Beth Am. Here's my Shabbat video, 3 parts, some communal updates, a piece of Torah, and those who want to stay, a short meditation. So the communal updates first, Sunday night. I hope you'll join us for this town hall at 7:30 p.m. We're going to be presenting a lot of material to you, helping you digest the email that came out this week about the high holidays that we've been thinking about for so long. That was kind of gut-wrenching to write, but we have more to say about it than we put in the email. And this will be an opportunity for you to hear the leadership of Temple Beth Am talk about what's in the works, and there will be some opportunities for breakout sessions so that you can engage in Q&A on specific subtopics that most interest you. 7:30 p.m. Sunday night. The registration link went out several times, including in today's Shabbat bulletin. Number two, I want you to know that we have basically made the decision that barring a catastrophic change in the circumstances, we will be having some version of Tisha B'Av, the fast of Tisha B'Av, gathering to sing the book of Eicha, to read the book of Eicha, Lamentations, in person on the field on the night of Tisha B'Av. It's going to be a limited number of people who can come, and it's going to be a bit of first come, first serve once that registration link is open. But if that's something you'd want to do, be amongst one of the first people who comes back to the campus for a gathering, for a prayer experience, Tisha B'Av, which is 3 weeks from this last Wednesday night, so 2.5 weeks from now, might be your first opportunity. There may and may not be an opportunity to do something like that for Kabbalat Shabbat on an upcoming Friday night. Third thing I want you to know is that we are really excited, in addition to the things that we're going to be offering, as you saw in the email, on High Holidays itself. Rabbi Schatz in particular, but other members of the team are organizing an extraordinary lineup of learning with our own leadership and clergy, and with some really amazing teachers and voices around the city and around the country who are going to be part of a series we're going to be putting on through the month of Elul leading up to Rosh Hashanah and beyond. So look for that announcement, because you're going to want to take advantage of as many of these things as possible. Rabbi Schatz has really brought together an incredible group, and I wanted to give you a heads up on that. Okay, part two. Tomorrow morning I'll be speaking on one aspect of the narrative of the daughters of Tzlofchad, the 5 daughters of this man Tzlofchad, who had no sons, who we learn about in Parshat Pinchas. The names of those daughters are very dear to me, because one of the names of those daughters is Noah, right? Remember, in the Bible, the guy with the ark was Noach, but the only Noah in the Bible, in Hebrew, is one of these daughters of Tzlofchad who petitioned Moshe successfully to have inheritance in the land of Israel, even though the law at the time was that only men would inherit land from their fathers. I'll be speaking about a different aspect of that tomorrow. I want to zoom in on just one sentence today. So after Moshe brings their petition saying, hey, do not let our father's inheritance disappear just because he had no sons, we believe we should be able to inherit it, Moshe brings the petition to God. God considers it, and God says something amazing. The earliest feminist words in biblical literature, Cain benot Tzlofchad dovrot. Moshe, the daughters of Tzlofchad, speak correctly. Naton titein lehem achuzat nachala. Go give them a plot of land. They have made a very good argument. On that phrase, that the daughters of Tzlofchad speak right, Rashi, quoting the Midrash, shares a beautiful image. It's a fantastical image, but a beautiful image. The image is, he says in Hebrew, Kach tuva parsha zo lefanai, as if God says to Moses, yeah, when I look at this parsha, in my version of the Torah, God says, this is how I see it turning out, right? So it's this image of God having a version of the Torah slightly different than the version that Moshe was writing in real time. God checks God's book, and says, oh yes, this is exactly how it's supposed to turn out. The way they have acted and what they are asking for is what I intended for Torah. There was a rabbi in the late 19th century called the Chatam Sofer, who happened to be radically opposed to any sort of reform and conservative movements in Judaism, but was a very interesting commentator on Torah, and sometimes I read what he wrote. And what he says in this, he now gives a commentary on Rashi, this image of God having God's own version of the Torah, the way the Khatam Sofer describes it is that in the stories of the Torah that are happening in real time, there's this version of them where all the letters are separated from one another and not yet turned into words, because Moshe doesn't yet know how this scene or that scene or this scene or that scene is going to happen until it happens. And as soon as the scene happens, all the letters form together and turn into words and turn into verses and turn into chapters so that Moshe can write them down the way they're supposed to be now that it happened. But the image is based on the fact that God already had some divine, supernal version of how the circumstances in the Torah were supposed to happen, and that image goes forth into our living out Torah in our lives. What do I mean by that? There are so many ways to study Torah and live out Torah, and there are so many ways to bring Torah and Jewish practice and Jewish wisdom into our life. And everybody wants to claim that the way they're doing it is the way God had in mind, right? We want to claim that for our version of Judaism, to the exclusion sometimes of those who are either reading our tradition more stringently or more leniently than ours. Certainly in the Orthodox and ultra-Orthodox world, they believe that when they live Torah, when they read Torah, when they do Torah, they are doing the Torah that God is seeing in God's own version of the book. And there can be something exclusionary about that, and certainly judgmental. And yet, I still think it's worth our aspiring to. I'll say it personally, I think it's worth my aspiring to. When I live out a moment informed by Jewish values, which are most of my moments are in some ways informed by Jewish values, informed by the words and the messages of the Torah and the way the rabbis interpreted them, one of the questions I must be thinking about, if I'm going to stay in the realm of righteous, which is not the same as self-righteous, is this the version of the application of Torah that my sense of God would be satisfied with, that my image of God wants? When God looks at God's book and sees God's Torah and see this moment being formed by my actions, would it make the cut? Would it get to the place where God would say, Cain, this is exactly what I had in mind when I look in my version, how you have chosen to live, how you have chosen to wield Torah, how you have chosen to wield your Judaism in this moment? Yes, this is what I meant. Will we know? Of course not, because we don't have that kind of access to God's will. And do each of us have a very different conception of God? Of course, that's what makes us different. That's what makes religions different. But if we're not pausing to ask how our ritual acts and our pronouncements and our deeds in the name of Judaism might shine a light upon what kind of God is, or might impact how God would take in and accept that moment, then we're moving far and far away from Judaism as a religious opportunity to impact the world and to impact the divine, and we're keeping it in the more, convenient and local notion of a set of cultural norms that are not aspiring to any higher standard. So I dedicate my Judaism this Shabbat and beyond, and I invite you to dedicate your Judaism and your study of Torah and your prayer and your living out our tradition in a way that whatever your conception of God is might satisfy the divine, might bring joy to the heavens, might be such an act that when God looks at God's Torah and looks at you and the Torah you live, God says, as it were, this is exactly what I had in mind. This is what the Torah ought to be. That's my challenge for all of us this Shabbat. And if you've had enough, I'm going to wish you Shabbat Shalom and tell you that I do miss you and that I do love you very much. And if you want to stay for a meditation, please do. So I'll give a second pause. And now a meditation, a version of meditation that I led at noon today for those who are on Zoom and on Facebook. And it's a meditation that's a little bit of a preview into what I'm going to speak about tomorrow morning on Shabbat, which is our relationship with choice, options, and limitations, and how sometimes limitations actually can be quite liberating. So I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. I want you to take some breaths that are deep, but don't overdo it. Just deepen your breathing a little bit. You can breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. And when you breathe out through your mouth, because no one's watching, and it doesn't matter even if they were, and no one's listening, and it doesn't matter even if they were, allow yourself to create some cathartic sound, as if you're drawing out the emotional and spiritual toxins in your body with each out-breath. It's not just the scientific carbon dioxide, it's all of the yuck that's inside you. It's okay. It's okay to make the sound. It feels good to make the sound. Ah. Ah. You can keep doing that as I'm talking. Placing your feet flat on the ground in front of you. And your hands palm down on your legs. Engaged in a soft embrace of self. Or palms up if you prefer, which is open to the heavens. Open to whatever this moment is bringing you. Let yourself fall into yourself, meaning let your body fall into your spirit. You can feel the physicality of your body being held and inhabited by your neshama, your soul, the part of you that is intangible. And let your spine do the majority of the work, and release every muscle that is not critical to holding this position, any non-weight-bearing muscle, as it were. Sometimes we think of a weight-bearing wall versus a non-weight-bearing wall in a building. A non-weight-bearing wall can be relaxed, it can be moved. Anything that's not actually holding you up, just let go, release, let it sag, let your shoulders fall deep into your socket, let your eyebrow be, your forehead be supple and straight and not holding on to stress. Let your eyes and the space around them be soft. Let your jaw be open and unengaged. All the while breathing, reconnecting body to spirit, body to spirit. And I want you to think of the notion of something which restricts you, confines you, claims you, but which is simultaneously an aperture, an opening, a liberation. It could be a relationship, a chosen one with someone you've chosen to spend your life with, or a chosen friendship, or one that exists by the accident of your birth or someone else's, or that's a limitation. You're claimed by that person. You owe more to them than you owe to most others. And yet what joy, what expanse, what liberation comes from that sense of being claimed. It could be a physical structure. Our homes, our houses, where you probably are this very moment. Limit us. We live here and not there. We decorate and sleep in and create home in this house, this apartment, and not any other. We don't wander the world, nor would we want to, searching for a different place to place our heads at night. Those who do find that to be the imprisonment, and would every single time, I imagine, choose the limitation of a house, of a home, rather than the expanse of the world entire. I want you to imagine yourself in a box. You can conceptualize this box in any way, physical or something more ethereal. It confines you. It holds you back. It restricts you. It limits you. But from it, you have all of the liberation that you would ever want. And possibilities that would not be open to you if you could just choose any box that you wanted. We are bound, and sometimes because we are bound, we are free. We are claimed, and sometimes because we are claimed, we are liberated. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. I wish you a Shabbat that is properly confining, religiously claiming you, restricting you, part of what Shabbat is meant to be, but that through that sense of restriction, you experience beauty, illumination, and liberty. I miss you. I love you. Shabbat Shalom.